Hi, my name is Tony Sasowski, and I'm an instructor in information technology at Milwaukee Area Technical College. The point of this broadcast and slash screencast is to interview a recent graduate of ours, Ike Ozurumba, who graduated in the fall of 2014. Ike has been a very successful graduate coming out of the IT networking program at METC, and we're going to focus on what helped him make him a success, allowed him to get a job, and what helped him establish his professional persona, and how IT-107, our social media and business writing course, helped him do that. So, Ike, welcome.
Thank you.
Um, I just want to, can you start off with just kind of telling us about your background, kind of where you came from and what brought you to MATC and your decision to pursue a career in IT?
Sure. Well, I was born and grew up in Houston, Texas. Lived there for about 20 years, and ended up moving up to Milwaukee to be closer to some of my family, and didn't really do much. I mean, as far as background goes, I just kind of delivered pizza for quite some time. I didn't really plan on going back to school, and then one year, just I felt like I needed to do something else, and kind of started thinking about going to school and chose MATC to attend, and didn't really look back after that.
Were there any particular reasons why you chose MATC? I know we have other options in the Milwaukee area.
Yeah, yeah. There are some pretty clear reasons. I think a big reason why I kind of didn't think about going to school originally was I really didn't want to go into debt. Tuition's pretty high these days, and I was kind of scared of racking up a lot of student debt for that. And then when I started looking into a little bit more affordable schools, I came across METC and started looking at how much their tuition costs and everything. And I thought, wow, I could actually do this. I could actually probably work and go to school and maybe come out, not being in debt. And that was probably the number one. And then I had talked to a few people about the IT program, and they said it was really solid. So, and I didn't mention it in my background, but I always was really into computers and how they work, and I originally wanted to kind of go to school for that, so it was a natural choice when I chose MATC. Might as well get into IT.
Okay. Well, you were one of the first students in our program who took our brand new class, which was social media and business writing, which really focuses. It's the IT-107 class that's offered in the IT networking program, and it was really, like I said, you were one of the first group of students, maybe the second group of students, semester students, that took the class. And just to give people a little background on the class is designed for our IT students to develop a professional persona. Just so Ike doesn't have to go into all these details, but generally it's to create a professional persona that gets yourself out there on social media platforms and allows you to hopefully network and interact with people in the business industry that hopefully will allow you to easier obtain a job. So the class has been a great success, and obviously one of the reasons I'm doing this is to tell one of these success stories. But that was a class, and I want to get your opinion. How did that class? How did you feel coming into that class? How did you feel coming out of it? And kind of how can you explain how maybe in a couple of points how it helped you in your studies and then to accomplish your goals, which is obviously when you come to MATC to obtain a job in networking or information technology.
Sure. Well, I would say first off, I'm really glad that I actually took that class. I believe I took it my first semester. I did feel that was good because that kind of set a precedent for the professional persona that I developed on myself to kind of grow over the courses of the semesters, which was nice. Coming into the class, I would say I probably came in a little bit, like, oh, well, I tried Twitter, or I've never heard of LinkedIn. Do I really need to do this? But after a couple of weeks of doing it, I think I realized a lot of this stuff was making sense, and a lot of people were using it. And the I guess I started to really open up and sort of think, okay, let me try this stuff. Let me start creating my professional persona. And I think that really developed into, I mean, what we would kind of refer to as like, I was self-branding myself. I was sort of creating this package of myself that anybody could see, especially potential employers, and they could get a general idea of where I am, what I'm capable of, that I'm capable of communicating, that I like to share ideas, that I'm also into new technologies, because a lot of the social media stuff, a lot of these people are on it. Like case in point, LinkedIn. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that are on it, especially business professionals. So when you're on it too, you're sort of in the loop with them. And I think just that self-branding is what I really ran with, and I think what really helped me, because I've had plenty of either in interviews or my current job, I've had people that hired me tell me, I looked at all that and I got a great sense of who you were, and that made me feel awesome. I thought, oh wow, this all completely paid off because I really did package myself a certain way. And on a side note, I will say too, one thing that I learned, and that I also learned on my own, is to really create that self-brand on like who you really are. So if you're really into something, follow people who are also into that subject, share that information, and be part of that. And yeah, so I think that the experience was great.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, this we have hindsight to look back at, but I know as being your instructor for the class that you followed the formula. You maybe were initially a little bit hesitant. Did you see any like immediate results that motivated you during that semester, and maybe even the semesters pushing forward because of what you did in that IT-107 class?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I started blogging. I started sort of what I would consider using like Twitter properly, and I started getting on LinkedIn, and I would say probably near the end of the first semester, things started to kind of snowball in a good way from there. I mean, I started getting attention from people who reading my blog. Recruiters were kind of contacting me. I had already the job that I have right now. I had already been contacted in my first semester, and so a lot of these things that I was doing on social media were really helping this employer kind of figure out who I was already. And I mean, in general, it makes you look a little bit better, because you're showing that you know how to write, that you know how to speak, that you know how to like maybe post things online without upsetting people, or just doing things properly. So yeah, I came in a little hesitant. I know that, and I thought that was funny. And then after a while, things just started to make sense. I started seeing results. And not only that, but I really liked what I was doing. I liked being in the know of my technological field. I liked sharing information. I liked finding out like cutting edge stuff, because I was following other people that were doing the exact same thing. And it just started to click and make sense. And from there, I just kept going with it.
Now, again, I was asking the question, hoping you wouldn't tell me what my next question, well, not leading into my next question, but obviously one of the big payoffs, or at least that, again, in hindsight, that you attribute to is you were selected by Cisco nationally to attend Cisco Live as one of the student representatives. Basically, you did a lot of grunt work at Cisco Live for Cisco,
Yeah.
but they paid for you to go out there, and you got a lot of experience and some perks. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, and maybe integrate how social media played, how what you learned in IT-107 and what you continued to do after IT-107 helped you get that great reward?
Sure. Well, I would say, Cisco Live was definitely the catalyst for where I am right now. I think that was a huge honor for me. And basically, a little bit about it is they chose 10 students from all over the country that were in the like Cisco CCNA programs, and they had us like apply and make a YouTube video, and do a couple posts about like why we want to go, and then they'd kind of look into our background and say, okay, we want this student. So I went ahead and did all that stuff, and the funny thing is a lot of that stuff that they asked us to do was a lot of stuff that we were doing in the class. Make a YouTube video, a tech blog, a YouTube video, post some stuff on Twitter, get on LinkedIn. I mean, all this stuff. As I got selected, obviously we would have meetings before Cisco Live, and everything they were asking of us was a lot of social media, and
And
I
when you
think
say everything, you mean what Cisco was asking you to do.
yes, and I guess to elaborate on everything, when we're what we'd be doing there is, like you said, a lot of grunt work, a lot of, like, putting down routers and switches and access points. But a lot of what they wanted us to do as well is, talk about our experience, blog about it, tweet about it, and I was already very comfortable with doing this because I had been doing it for, over a semester. So it was kind of funny because as they're saying, hey, if you have a great experience, why don't you share it? I'm thinking, okay, this is this is easy. I'm already blogging. I'm already doing all this stuff. I just fit in really well, and I think I kind of put two and two together and realized that a lot of maybe why I got selected was because I was already I didn't have a very big
Well,
learning curve for this.
you told me that you actually played the role sometimes of trainer to the other guys
Yeah,
that
I
were
was
that
I
were
was
with
just
you.
thinking about that when we got there. There there are so many. I mean, they have their own, like, hub for social media that's literally just monitoring and putting out great posts and stuff like that. So you kind of get there and there's a fever with social media, and some of the people that kind of, like, reject the notion of doing that stuff, they were kind of struggling and maybe had to be shown, like, hey, this is how Vine works, or this is how Twitter works, or, like, this is how you would properly use it and stuff like that. So and not only that, but you meet a lot of professionals working at Cisco, and all of them are on LinkedIn. So if I wasn't on LinkedIn, it'd be really awkward because that's almost like the new age business card. Hey, are
Right.
you on LinkedIn? And then you just add somebody. So it was great that I came in already armed with these tools. But it was a great experience, and blogged about
Yeah.
it every day.
And I mean, that was an awesome. I mean, obviously, I want to give a shout out to Lane Davis, an Cisco instructor at METC, who nominated you. Um, and also, obviously, you were a great nominee. So, I mean, that's also part of this equation for everybody to understand is that, kind of this is the middle of the interview. And I just want to say that, I don't want to give any uh, false hope to people to think that this is easy. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication, and it takes somebody who's willing to adapt and be, able to adjust to change. Um, and I think Ike has been the perfect example of that. He's one who accepted it and dug in, and even though he said, "Well, maybe I'm not sure," he went ahead and did it and kept doing it for a extended period of time. And so, again, I don't want to say it. I don't want to make it sound like it's easier that this. We have a very hard. This Ike was a very dedicated student, hard worker, um, and but he was willing to accept it and try it. And I think that's a big deal. Now, you did mention that you were almost interviewing for your current job, uh, the first semester or second semester. Can you kind of just tell about how that kind of came about through social media? Maybe about your interviews, just kind of how that path followed, how you were being contacted by recruiters, those kind of things.
Sure. I mean, the initial beginnings of getting contacted, I think, happened through actual social contact. Like, I was hanging out with a guy, and I happened to mention that I was in the IT networking program at METC, and he was like, "Oh, okay. Well, we have this program. Let me talk to some people, and we're gonna come take you out to lunch and stuff." So I did a couple lunches and stuff like that. And as I would do those, what's nice is my friend would kind of say, "Hey, if you want to know more about him, check out his blog. He has a great blog." And so the recruiters would look at it, and I was really glad that I was keeping it up because it was current and it was showing exactly what I'm doing and what I'm interested in and all that stuff. And every semester I would tell them, I like no, like they wanted to kind of get me on board right away, and I kept saying
And I
no.
kept on saying, finish school, finish school.
Yeah, and it was honestly it was a gamble because it's a really nice job, and I was taking a risk by saying, look, you have to wait because I want to
Right.
graduate, I want to get my degree. It was a big long dream. I mean, I had waited a long time to go back to school, and I wanted to get my degree. So they waited, and then every semester I'd meet with them. They kind of see where I was, and the finally near the end, they I ended up caving a little bit. I got hired. I allowed them to. I allowed them to. I allowed myself to be hired a month before graduation, and that was a pretty strenuous month. But it's over now and it's great. But
Well, and by that time you had very understanding instructors and developed enough cred with us that we were able to understand and
yeah.
understand the stress you might be under by accepting a job and trying to
Oh yeah,
finish up.
all of my, I would say all of my, I first went to all of my IT teachers and said, hey, this is where I am. Is this going to be okay? And all of them were like, this is what you're doing it for. This is why you're going to school, to get a job like this. So then I just had to break it to my general ed teachers, because I was still taking gen ed classes. And I was worried about them because they might, but most of them were cool, and it was still really tough, but in the end it paid off. But I think just sort of just really keeping up my schoolwork 4.0, keeping up my self branding and my professional persona, just keeping like that whole persona alive and really striving towards learning and sharing information and showing that I can communicate and communicate in person with people, I think really helped.
Now, I want to be clear, because I know you never really formally applied for the job that you're currently in. I mean, you did but you didn't apply for the job and then get the
No,
interview. You were
I was,
being actively recruited
I was
as you
yeah,
were
pursued.
completing school, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I was pursued.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is one thing that we try to get across in the class, and obviously I think it hit home with you, is that you're starting your career in school. I mean, especially when you're coming and you don't know it, and that's how you're establishing your experience. And we have a very good, Remington TC has a good reputation in IT, that we send out our students knowing how to do stuff, and I think that that's important to understand. And the other thing is, I think you've mentioned this, but I want to reiterate it to people, is that when you left the IT-107 class in the first semester, you didn't give up on all of the things that you had learned and been doing in that class. You continued blogging. You continued to be active on Twitter. You continually updated your LinkedIn profile as you proceeded. And I think that that's important for students and potential people who are going to follow along in your path to understand. It's not just one and you're done and I don't have to do anything
No.
anymore. It's a continual process. So we've talked about your professional persona. Obviously, we've seen it integral. There's one thing that I know you told me a story a while back, anecdotally, about your blog and about what the employer said when he
Oh yeah.
met with you for the first interview. Could you just
Hmm.
relay that? Because I think that's a really cool story.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, this kind of goes on. It goes back to the one. It's not a one and done and you're done, because what people might not realize is when you're out looking for a job, everyone that you're looking at to try to get hired at is going to look you up. They're going to look you up, and they're going to find out what you left behind. And if you created a blog and did 2 blog posts and then just quit like 5 years ago, they're going to see that, and whether or not that reflects is different. But basically what happened was, as I was getting really into the deep end with through the recruitment process and doing my interviews, about let's see, 2 interviews in, I was talking to basically one of the guys that I had to have a good interview with to get hired, and we were talking and initially, and he introduced himself, and I said, yeah, he's asked, is there anything else I'm involved in? I said, I'm really involved in social media and blogging, and I really like that stuff. And he said, well, just straight up, he said, well, what if I told you I read your entire blog? Now, I don't want to plug my blog, but if anybody wants to go look at it, I mean, Tony can put something
It's
up about it
it's
later. It's
basically, if you
pretty
Google Ike Network Guy at the bottom, his blog will come up.
sure. And the thing is, I mean, I've been doing that blog since I started IT-107.
Right.
I created it there, and then it became its own monster since then. And it's a pretty extensive blog. And this is after Cisco Live, when I blogged every day of going there. So for him to tell me, what if I read your entire blog? There was 2 thoughts in my mind. First was, I'm glad I kept it up and actually did a good job on it, because if he read the entire thing, he's going to get a really good idea of what kind of person I am, because
Right.
you
Right.
know I've documented so much about the school experience, what it's like to be a student, what I'm
Right.
interested in networking, and 2, it was a sense of pride. Every time I write a blog, some people don't know this, but there's, I put a piece of me into that, and he's reading that. So him to tell me that was great. And then a side story that I don't know if I maybe mentioned to you is, well, after I was hired, after training, we were all of the new recruits that got hired. We were sitting around having dinner with the very person that hired me, and we kind of brought up the blog again. And he said, what I loved about it is I read the entire thing, and I felt like I already knew you even before I called you on the phone. So I had a great idea of what kind of person you were. I could see that you could write, and that's important. I mean, we're in IT, and there's a stigma with IT people sometimes that, we can't communicate. Slide the pizza under the door. Let me work on the computer. Well, being able to communicate is a valuable commodity, and I think that's a big reason why you get pursued is. If you can show that you're technically gifted and you have the ability to communicate, which blogging is a great way to show that, that's a very valuable commodity to companies. So.
Yeah, I mean again, the people who watch this, which will be my current students and whoever anybody else, will hear me sing that mantra over and over again. But it's good to hear from somebody who actually got some firsthand results. One of the other things too, we're getting close to finishing up, but one of the other things we hear is, why IT and social media? Why do those go together? That's marketing department or PR or people in IT don't need to understand this or even beyond your professional persona. Again, I would argue that this IT-107 class would be a class that would be applicable to everybody who would be completing a degree. Establishing a professional persona. I think you can do the same thing if you're a nursing student, if you're in paralegal, if you're in graphic design. I think you could all accomplish the same thing and have the same success that you had, except in a different field. Now, again, that's my opinion. I think you share that opinion with me. But see, is there any can you address maybe that issue that, well, it's not IT, or why do I need to know it? It's not something I necessarily need to know.
Yeah, that's like what you said. It really can be for everybody. I think everybody needs to learn how to professionally present themselves online. But what we're talking about as well is it is a new technology. And I think one of the things that kind of opened me up early on was, look, this is a new technology, and I'm in the field of knowing technologies. Mm-hmm. If you show me a device that I've never heard of before, I want to tinker with that device and figure out how it works and works properly. Well, with IT, that's a new technology. Not, you know what I'm saying? It's not like new, but it's a new world, and right. A lot of people don't use it properly. So when you're supposed to use it properly, I think a lot of people you're going to run into in the industry are using it.
Right.
And to whatever degree they might not be, but for you not to be in it, you get this sense of that you might not be in the know. You might be abusing it, which unfortunately a lot of people aren't using it right in a professional sense. Different when you're talking with your friends, but to learn how to handle yourself on social media and what to know about is important. But then as well as sharing ideas with other IT professionals. There's a lot of them out there, and I've spent the better part of probably coming up on almost 3 years now following and sharing information with those people, so that now when I get on I get invited to a Cisco conference, I run into 8 people that, I follow you on Twitter, and we've been sharing information.
Right.
Just the other day I had a meeting at my job, and there was a guy, and I was like, you look familiar, and then I realized we had been following each other on social media and sharing information. So I think it's such important for IT because it, like I stated earlier, it shows the ability for an IT professional to properly communicate, and as well, it is a technology, and it's important to know and learn and present yourself properly.
Yeah, and I think that, I'll add to that. I think you're exactly right. I think that, when I think about how, you and I have communicated over the last 2+ years since I met you as a student, really, email gets less and less used in forms of communication. That includes me as an instructor. If email fell under the domain of IT, it would seem to me that social media will fall under the domain of IT, because it seems to me that that's where a lot of the communication is headed. The platforms differ. and the technologies sometimes differ, but it's still a form of communication, and it's still quasi-public, just like email was, and so on and so forth. So rules or policies and procedures and things like that that would be in place for a company to use their digital footprint or tools will probably easily extend to social media. I also think that from a business perspective, having your IT be familiar and educated on social media is important so that they aren't dissing or dismissing, whichever one you choose, business opportunities that could come up with social media. And again, you can point to the progressive companies who use social media. There are people who on the top understand the power of it. Cisco, for example. I mean, they bought in as a company, not just as a set of individuals. And many of the tech companies, you had Brian Kirsch. You were involved in VMware. You know that VMware is the same way. So yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think that going forward, even though it might be used in PR, it might be used in marketing, it might be used in whatnot, that IT still is going to play an integral role, and it's going to be up to us thought leaders and people who really like change to understand this technology. So, all right, couple.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Add, Tony, I forgot about is one thing I wanted to say, because you mentioned like Cisco and VMware. I hear as well through the grapevine that some of these upper engineers are heavily encouraged to participate in social media. They have extensive knowledge, and companies would love if their top knowledge professionals would share some information, get others encouraged in the businesses. So a lot of these top companies, when you get up in the ranks, they sort of encourage you, hey, you should be blogging. Like Cisco has great blogs, VMware has great blogs, they have guest bloggers all the time. So going into those situations and already being kind of comfortable, it helps, because the last thing you want to do is scramble, and trying to figure out like, oh, how do I properly write a blog, or how do I post something, because you're gonna be asked to do it eventually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are all great points, and again, I don't want to make this into that long or over long so that we lose people's short attention span. But I just have a couple more questions, and then I'll let you kind of sum up or add anything that you might want. So, I mean, in the end, now you're employed. You also achieved some other life milestones in the process, which is congratulations again on. But I mean, can you just kind of summarize on how you feel about attending MATC in the IT networking program, and especially how with the advent of the IT-107 class, was MATC the right choice? I mean, it's kind of a question that you see it was because of your success, but how did we help you get there, and why MATC, and why would you suggest to other students or current students that if you work hard and follow some of the formulas that us instructors lay out, that you can achieve your kind of success?
Sure. I think the number one thing that I guess if you were to call it a formula that I did was I listened to all of my instructors, you, Brian, Lane, Pat. If I'm forgetting anybody else, I apologize. But anything that all of the instructors in the IT program at MATC had been in the industry, like some of them recently. So they're coming and they're telling us stuff, and I'm hearing it, and I'm saying, well, look, they were just there. They know what they're talking about. So I just was very open-minded and just went for it. If they suggested even, hey, when you go home, check out this technology, I would go home and check out that technology. Hey, why don't you try this lab? I would go try it out. And the thing is that now that I have the job that I have, and you asked earlier, was MATC the right choice? And that kind of seems obvious, but it's funny because I run into exactly the stuff that I was taught at MATC, and that right there is complete justification. Because I've looked into some other schools, some four-year colleges, we're not going to name names, but some of the stuff they teach you isn't specific, and I have a specific job. I'm a network engineer, and that was my degree, and my classes were pertained just to that. And even some of the extra classes that you have to take, security and server and stuff like that, that stuff is, you still run into that stuff. So it's awesome. I've been trained exactly for what I do for a great job. So yeah, it was a great choice, and I think just listening to the instructors and sort of taking their advice and sort of not saying no to anything really helped. I
Hmm.
really do.
Well, I mean, I know one of the things that I'm going to focus on, I always redevelop in my mind and take note of how I, obviously presented the class and outlined it to you and looking for ways to improve it. But one of the things that I know that is surely a common denominator, besides somebody who's hard work, motivated, passionate about the field, is they're open to change and they're open to try things like you just said. They're open, they're not shutting down, new technology. Something comes out and they just don't all of a sudden say, "Oh, that looks, I don't want to use that," or "I'm not going to use that," or "I'm not, that doesn't work," or whatever. You at least give it a chance. And I think that that's one of the. I'm becoming more and more attuned to the fact that people who are succeeding, especially in technical IT climate, are people who like that change and aren't afraid of that change.
Hmm.
And you pretty much uh, you know hit it out of the park by talking about that. And I mean, again, the knowledge is out. I mean, to gain the knowledge and to do that I think everybody's capable of. It's a question of how much passion, how much, are you going to sit there and just turn your head or not follow the formula or not keep up with it? And again, like I told you guys, and I've told every class since, you're not our only success story. I developed a relationship with you over time as a student, but we have other success stories out there of the same people who, followed the formula and are out there and fully employed. And so, do you have any other last words? Anything else you want to add about, Milwaukee Area Technical College or about the IT-107 class, or any kind of one-liner motivational slings you can give to new students that are coming into this class?
Well, I would say, especially specifically if you're taking IT 107 and you're in IT, like what you said, you have you have to be open-minded. I mean, we're in a field where technology is changing all the time, and the people that say, "Oh, I don't want to learn that," it's not healthy in this field. Now that I have my career job, I'm constantly bombarded by new technologies, and I have to say, oh, let me look into that. Let me see what it's all about. And that applies to IT 107. It applies to anything that the other instructors tell you. Just look into that stuff. People know what they're talking about. Things are going to be important. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, you can find Ike. His Twitter handles on the lower third of his uh, picture, Ike Network Guy. You also can search for that in Google, and you will be also see his blog and his LinkedIn profile. So I would definitely suggest following Ike on Twitter. Also, if you ever need advice, I know that Ike has always said that he will be my go-to guy, unless he gets too busy. But Ike's great mentor and great person. That if you had any questions for somebody who just went through the experience, and that was really my purpose of doing this, was to give some feedback to our new students or students that are going to be taking our classes on how this worked. And the funny thing is, 2 years go by really fast. I mean, you finished in 2 years, which is again quite an accomplishment. But like you said, you were motivated and really passionate about the field. You came back to school with a plan. You had your goals set in your head. You knew what you wanted to do, and then you set out to accomplish it. So again, I don't want to dismiss again, I know I reiterate this. This is what I do in the classroom. But again, I don't want to dismiss that the amount of hard work and dedication and passion that was put into it for success. So again, that's a big part of it, but not the only part of it. So I want to thank you again for taking this time out. I wanted to get it in before the debut of the Premier League next week. I know you're a Manchester United fan, and
Come on,
Saturday
United.
you'll be, well, the game will probably be over with by now, but you'll be up early watching Manchester United take on, who do they take?
What is it, Swansea?
Swansea City. That's right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get this in before that, also, so that I would have it to share with my new students in the next couple of weeks and hopefully going forward. So I want to thank you again, and I really appreciate the time, and I hope for your continued success, and good luck.
Thank you, and good luck to all the students out there.
All right, thank you, Ike.
Thanks.